Hi there, YouTube. Today I'd like to talk about how avoiding history because it's uncomfortable is moronic. And I mean that literally. It is absolutely stupid and ridiculous and idiotic and, well, moronic. The human race has achieved some amazing things. With the wheel, man on the moon, electricity, all these things, but we've also invented gunpowder and the atomic bomb and, all sorts of really bad stuff. And you have to know both sides. You can never truly understand the world without understanding both sides. It's not all moonbeams and rainbows. History has been created over the millennia through conflict and strife, as well as success and joy. And a lot of things that have led to success and joy came from misery and war. I mean, as we all know, whether it's apocryphal or not, a lot of things that were invented for the space program came out of rocketry in the United States was basically built on the Nazi Germans who came over. Werner von Braun was a Nazi. I'm sorry, but he was. He may not have liked the regime, but you can't say he wasn't part of it. He saw the power of Hitler and he thought, I can use this guy in order to follow my dream, which his dream was to do rocketry and put men on the moon. And then Hitler didn't quite work out for him, so he came over to the United States and he built things for war. The guy invented, ICBMs and helped the American scientists who weren't doing very well at it. He brought all the Nazi know-how with him. And from that, when America decided to go through the space race, they turned to Werner von Braun and said, well, we don't care about your history, just put us on the moon. And he did. I am not excusing any part of Werner von Braun's history, but the point is, you need to know it. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm not saying it does matter. What the point is, it's a part of fact. It's true. It is a historical fact that Werner von Braun was a German doing stuff for Hitler in the 1940s. Now, I'm not specifically pointing to him as the ultimate example. I'm just using him as an example. We in the UK, in days of old, we did horrific things to people. We sent people over to Australia. We banished them from the United Kingdom. That's a horrible thing to do. I know that happened, not because I was there, but because I learned it in history books. Slavery was a thing. People at one time thought it was an okay thing to take somebody from one country and just put them in permanent unpaid servitude with somebody else. Now, the thing they forget to tell you specifically about slavery, and this may get this video flagged, but I'm going to have a go, is that white slavers did not go over to Africa and grab people and throw them onto boats. They were sold to the slavers by the black chiefs of the country. Yes, black people sold their own people to the white slavers into slavery. Was that a good thing to do? No. Did it happen? Yes. Is it important to know it? Yes. Is it uncomfortable to know that? Yes. But that's not a reason not to know it. History is fact-based. A fact cannot be racist. A fact cannot be sexist. A fact is a fact. History, in many ways, is the science of the past. That's how I like to think about history. History is the science of the past. It is a fact that has happened, has been documented, and it is then up to people to tell future generations about it. That's what history... If you don't, as they say, if you don't learn about history, you are destined to repeat the mistakes. And I've completely butchered that quote. Something along the lines, if we don't learn from history, we have to learn... You get the idea. One of the downsides of doing these off-cuff. Apologies. But you have to know these things. If you didn't, then literally every generation would be destined to generate the same mistakes as their forefathers. And this does happen. If you don't learn about something, You can easily do it again, and it might not be a good thing. You know, if we destroyed all the textbooks about how electricity works, that's not to say we won't reinvent electricity at some point, but it won't be easy. You know, facts and the world is built on the shoulders of giants. People have to learn these things, and avoiding any part of history that's uncomfortable it's stupid, because there's a through line all the way from way back when right the way now. I'm going to use another example: the internet, and therefore the World Wide Web that came afterwards, because they're not the same thing. The internet came from ARPANET, which was an American project, basically, that the American military again, you see, that's war-based. Oh, that's uncomfortable. A war-based thing. Oh, mustn't talk about that. But the American military wanted to find a way to link all its military bases together that was basically impervious to attack. If you just had one physical piece of cable going from point A to point B, you snip that piece of cable, you're stuffed. So they invented this thing called ARPANET, which basically was a way of distributing everything across multiple systems. So you could have lots and lots and lots of different cables, and you'd send the information down everything, and it would gradually be dismantled at one end and reassembled in the other. You know, and that was how the internet was born, and the ARPANET grew, and then eventually they put universities onto that. Oh, a place of learning based on a war thing. Oh no, uncomfortable. And then they did that, and then it became bigger, and then companies said, well, can we link in? Because we'd quite like a link to your university. And it grew and grew and grew. Welcome to the internet. And then the internet, somebody thought, oh, we can do clever things with this. We can do a nice, clever way to link all the information together. Hello, Sir Tim Berners-Lee. And he invented the World Wide Web, and the rest is history. No pun intended. But I know that. I've given you a very quick Cliff Notes fact. Hopefully everyone who's listening to this already knew that. But it was invented based on a very uncomfortable fact about war. You know, it was all based on war. The reason for recording this video is Mundane Matt, hopefully a link in the description, has done a piece about how a history teacher who has been forced into retirement because of he hung a Confederate flag and a Union flag, I want to point out. He didn't just do the one in his classroom. And apparently the kids were just triggered to death about this. They just couldn't cope with seeing a Confederate flag. Don't let any of those kids watch The Dukes of Hazzard, for goodness sake. Classic American TV show from the 1980s. One of my favourites. Wasn't about Daisy Duke at all. Oh, no, not at all. Ho, ho, ho. Of course it was. I digress. Top of the General Lee. Oh, I believe the General Lee was the name of a famous military leader. Oh, Confederate flag painted on the top of the General Lee. Oh, triggered. Disaster. History is the science of the past. You have to understand, you have to know history. It's important. Knowing about something means you can learn. Well, knowing about something means you can learn from it. You can move on from it. You can improve on it. You know, slavery, going to go there again. Slavery, bad thing. But if you learn about slavery, and then you learn why it happened, how it got overthrown, how it was overcome. Slavery, of course, the battle against slavery got kicked off. I believe, I may be mistaken, so apologies for that based on this video. But people fighting against slavery, you know, was what it kicked off Martin Luther King Jr., which kicked off the American Civil Rights Movement, which is what pushed blacks into having rights, which is eventually who ended up having a black president. I mean, just wow. But all that was based on this initial premise of slavery. There's a through line from slavery, bringing people in from Africa. They didn't like what was happening to them in the States. They fought for their rights. They got rights. Eventually, a black guy became president. I mean, wow. But it's no point just saying, there was this black guy, and he was walking around the streets, and he decided to be president. There's more to it than that. And the reason we know there's more to it than that is because of history. If you avoid, and now to the nub of the matter, if you remove all the parts of history that are unpleasant or triggering, boy, do I hate the phrase triggering. If you remove all the elements of history that are uncomfortable, you are doing a disservice. You're actually harming people's intellectual growth. Another little example for you, just to show that I don't just talk about American stuff. In England, we used to, our kings had absolute power. We have torture chambers in England. I live quite near to a medieval castle. You can go down into the dungeons and you can see medieval torture devices where they literally tore people's tongues out with pliers. They literally did put people in oil. They did do these things. These are not just Hollywood creations. We in England did that to people. We really did. When you see these things in the dungeons on display, they're not props, they're not pretend, they're the actual ones. When you look at something and it says underneath, calipers used to rip people's tongues out, that's not a prop. That's not somebody in Elstree Studios or a Hollywood studio that's made that. That actual device was held by somebody and put into somebody's mouth and they tore their tongue out with it. Now that is history. It's desperately unpleasant and it's desperately nasty, but you have to know about it so that you can know that it's desperately unpleasant and desperately nasty, which it is. Should people be tortured? No, they should not. Absolutely. But you have to know these things. It is important to know the good side and the bad side of any part of history. If you don't know the bad side, you can't appreciate the good side. To digress briefly, if you're a phenomenally privileged rich person, if you literally have a trust fund so that you've got like $1 million or £1 million in the bank all the time, you will never understand what it's like to be on the breadline. You won't understand because you can't understand. In many ways, you are intellectually stunted through no fault of your own, but you cannot understand what it's like not to be able to find something to eat. And would I expect you to be able to understand if you were in that situation? No, because you're not in that situation. Do I think you should be put in that situation or have it explained to you? Yes, I do, because everybody should know and should understand the bad side of things and the good side of things. No portion of history should ever be hidden away from people because you need to know the bad stuff, or the good stuff just isn't worth it.